Hi, welcome to another Lawn Fawn video. I'm Kara, and today the mice are sending out a message. I love you, a bushel and a peck. We're using apple-solutely awesome, very special, you ought to know, Build-A-Barrel apple, all in canvas textured cardstock. The speech bubbles, just the little I love you, and Henry's ABCs. Oh, and the outside in stitched rectangles. So first I'm going to stamp everything up using jet black ink because it is Copic friendly and I'm going to be using Copic markers today. Stamping out all those mice, a ladder from Apple-Solutely Awesome, and a sign from Very Special. Now there's also one in the Apple-Solutely Awesome stamp set too, but this sign in Very Special is a little bit bigger, so it's going to fit my I love you a little bit better. All right, well, I am going to show two of my mice being colored, and this one is in warm grays. And I started with the W3, thought I can go a little darker with the W4, finding those shadows in there, blending them out with the W1. And now this guy is from the You Ought to Know set. We'll give him some pink ears with that R81 and cheeks, and thought it could get a little darker, so an R83, and give him some W6 in the ear, and thought, yeah, we can even go darker for those shadows. So just touching at the darkest spots with that W6 and blending it a tiny bit with the W4. So some of the mice are going to be just warm gray and some are going to be E40s, such as this guy. And then some of them are going to just be a combination of both. Now this guy is from Crazy Antics, and so is his friend next to him to the right. But they don't actually get on the card today. They're kind of like the extras in Hollywood. They got cut from the scene. Oh, well, they'll be on another card. I'm sure they'll get a good gig soon enough. All right. Well, anyway, but you can see how I'm coloring, and I'm putting in that pink for the ears. Oops, forgot that nose on my first guy, so gave him his pink nose, darkening in the ears, and then where those shadows were kind of blended away a little bit, just deepening those up a bit too. The sign is going to be E20s, give us something a little different there. And so E21 and E23, and I use an E25. I'm kind of making a wooden sign. So I'm adding those lines for the planks and then coming through with a darker one, shading up those lines a little bit more. Here's the E25. And then I'll blend that to keep it subtle with the E21. Now that my sign is all set, it's time to cut all of these guys out with their coordinating dies. The Apple-Solutely Awesome stamp set has these mice with apples that are fairly large, as you can see the one on the very left, the middle left, but he's still able to hold it. Now I'm going to use these mice as though they are tiny and the apples are much larger than they are. So we're going to change the perspective a little bit. I ran them all through the die cut machine and they're all set to go. So now I can start putting together the larger pieces of the card. I have an outside in stitched rectangle in the textured canvas green and one in brown, but I cut it in half or a little less than half. And I have all my pieces that I cut out, and those are also all in textured canvas cardstocks, pinks and browns, the reds and the greens. There's that I love you sign. And that again is from Speech Bubbles. And then I'm just placing where I think I want these apples to go. And you can see they're red and pink, and those pink apples are not going to stay pink. I'm starting with pink on them, but we'll blend them into a nice red just so that there's a little variation in these apples. I wasn't sure if I could get the whole sentiment on the front of the card, so I'm trying that out to see how it would look. But when I get it all placed on there, I feel like it's just too busy. It's like visually noisy to me. And then once I have all those mice crawling around on there, I thought, no, no, I can't do that. So the nice thing with cards is that you can have something on the inside, and that's exactly how this is gonna go. So the and a peck will get on the inside of the card. All right, well, I want to ink blend these apples, and I'm using festive berries, and I'll also use aged mahogany, just using a small blender brush to blend that in. And the festive berries is about the same color as my red cardstock, so that's not much help on that one. I'm using the pink paper just to give a bit of highlight. So now here comes that aged mahogany, and that will really show up on that red cardstock now. And I'll blend back and forth between that aged mahogany and the festive berries. But I'm not sure. I decided I wanted a bit more depth to these apples, and so I brought out my Copic markers, and I'm using an R56 and 83 to get these blended in a little bit more. And I really like this. I like the combination of ink blending with the distress inks and also with Copic markers. So this one here has not had any ink blending on it. And the one uh, next to it and a little bit up from it, that is the same pink cardstock, but that had ink blending and the Copic markers, and so that's kind of the look I'm going for. So once I have this colored up in Copic markers and blended through with those, then I'm going to come back with my distress ink again and blend in those festive berries and aged mahogany, and then that is a look. That's the look I'm going for today. I used the Copic markers and ink blending on the red apples as well, and now I'm coming through with my blending brush and ink blending those letters, and that again, it's the same festive berries and aged mahogany, and now using the Copic markers, getting a little bit more definition into the shading. And again, it's the R81, R56, and the R59. I'm going to use the same technique with my apple barrels, and so I am using antique linen and gathered twigs as my browns, and I'll slip a little bit of scratch paper in there to darken up the inside of the barrel at the very top. And once I take that paper out, you can kind of see how that worked. Get the rest of that blended together, and then I'll use my Copic markers, and I'm using the E40s. So this is an E43, and I'm going to blend that in with an E41. So we call that mixed media, right? Because we're using two mediums. We're using the ink and the alcohol markers. Right, blending in some shadows to go underneath the ribbing part of the barrel, and then give the bottom parts of those slats some shadow there, with mostly with the Copic markers at this point, not blending as much with the ink, with the distress ink. Now, if I was to use oxide inks, I would not use my Copic markers over that, just the regular distress ink. I think the oxide inks might damage the marker tips there, the nibs. All right, just blending that in a little further with the E44 and the E42. And then I have my barrel all set to go. You can see how different it looks next to the one on the left. So it does help to have that shading and blending around the ground that the apple barrels will be sitting on. I'll ink blend the stems of the apples, but I'll also color those with Copic markers. And I'm only going to shade the leaves with the distress ink. I'm not going to use Copic markers on those. And I decided to really just use the darker leaves. Now here is the bow that can go with your apple barrel. and that's with the lighter green, the same green that the background is on. And I'm using a rustic wilderness for my green. Using my tape runner to attach these two together, and even though they are the textured canvas, the tape runner adheres them together just fine. I'm going to use some glue for the smaller pieces. One thing that's great about this Build-A-Barrel apple set is there's a variety of ways you can do the stems and leaves, but I like this one with the stem. I can just glue that green leaf right on top. You can also just cut it out of white cardstock and color the brown and green on there. And now I'm gluing those stems right into, there's a little cut in the apple that those fit right into. Here's my bow. So that's a three-piece bow. I have the ribbons that are coming down and the bow area, and then on the top there's a nice detail for the knot part. I'll put those bows on the barrels, and then it's time to start arranging everything. I don't know, there's just something so satisfying about putting these apples into the barrels. All right, well, I want to keep those apples in the barrel, so I'm putting some glue on the back part of the barrel, so right on the inside there, and that'll just adhere them right in there. And I'll glue the I love you onto the sign. And that's really, those are small letters, which I love having small letters. Even though I'm using the jumbo glue tube, the tip makes it so easy just to get a very little bit out and onto my letters. And so that's so nice. All right, time to arrange where everybody is going to be on here. And you can see I didn't color their overalls yet. I wasn't sure what color they were going to be. So as I'm arranging them, I'm thinking about that. This is a very green and red card without being Christmassy, but I just wasn't sure which way to go with those overalls. All right, this little guy, I thought he could sit on an apple, but I want him on one of the bigger apples, and I wasn't sure. Well, I think he just needs to go to the left. See, this is the fun part of arranging everything. Figure out where these guys should go. Definitely want them up a little bit because the letters have to go on the bottom. So I'm going to make sure everything is kind of focused up towards the top a bit. I love this little guy who just seems like he's just hanging out in the apple barrel there at the top. I glued down the other barrel and the sign, and now here's that little ladder. And I will wait to glue down those two with the overalls because I want to color them first. But that little apple, I cut off the leaf so that this guy could maybe wrap his arms around that stem. So I've got a little cutting mat here and my X-Acto knife. I'm just going to free up his arms from each other so that they can go around that stem. So let's see that. All right. Yeah, so that worked out really well. So he's sitting on top of the apple with those arms around that stem. I don't know why. Maybe he's holding on for dear life. Maybe he's gonna try to pull out the stem. We'll see. Well, I'll add those letters and see how everybody is going to fit on there. I have that one little guy with the apple, and you see I didn't color him, or the apple part, because he's actually going to be holding on to the larger apple. Once I freed up his arm, I just used my scissors to kind of free that up on both sides of his arm so that they can go right onto the apple there. There we go. I want to cut off a little excess of that apple so that it doesn't show above, so probably just that leaf part. And then put on some glue, and there he is, all set with his apple. Boy, he's strong. And then another apple behind that. Maybe he's kind of leaning, using the other apple to help him lean in to pick that one up. Right, just gluing on my little guy with his apple over on the left side, and gluing on those letters. And then, okay, what color are those overalls going to be? I decided they're going to end up just being white, kind of like painter's overalls, I guess. I thought I liked that little bit of white that is coming from the edges of my stamps. And I'm also going to use some white to show a shine on the apples. So I thought, well, they'll just stay white. I added this panel to a 4¼ by 5½ inch note card, and on the inside we'll put in the other letters, so and a peck. I don't know, are you familiar with that song? Oh, I used to sing it all the time to my kids, and it was one of our car songs. We had a whole repertoire of car songs that we sang, and it was funny. We were camping just a couple of weekends ago with another family, and we were playing this campfire game where you were given a word and you had to come up with a song that word was in. And anytime our family got a song that was in our car song repertoire, oh, we were belting it out. It was like we were, well, anyway, it was a fun moment as a mom to see my kids belting out these car songs they knew when they were little. I mean, they're 18 and 20 now, so it was a lot of fun. Anyway, here we are gluing in the rest of those letters, and I used my ruler. It has a central 0, so that's an easy way to make sure that they're all spaced well and also lined up nice and straight. All right, now that I have the two guys with the overalls colored, so you can see I used cool grays to give them those white overalls, and now they can join their friends in the apple barrels. And here's that Signal white gel pen to give a little shine to the apples and also to the letters. And I continued that detail into the inside of the card. And then I thought, let's just put a little something extra in here. So I lifted up part of that P with my scissors so that I could stick this leaf into that. It kind of looks like a little apple itself, so a little detail there. Here we are. I love you, a bushel and a peck. And I think those mice are belting out that tune. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video today and it inspired you to create a scene with a musical theme. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Bye!